you to talk about. And I guess the first thing of all is, how did you start coaching? What got you into it?
A random phone call while I was out. I was skating at the University of Minnesota as an ineligible transfer student. They had a junior varsity, and I banged up my shoulder again, so I wasn't skating. And I got a phone call from a guy that said, "Would you like to come coach our midget team?" And I hemmed and hawed, and I said, "Can I? How much skating can I do?" And they said, "Well, we got our own rink. You can skate all you want." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "I'll give it a try. I'll see." And I went and I liked it. I liked coaching. And probably subconsciously, I was realizing I probably wasn't going to play for the Gophers. And so, because that was my sophomore year, so I wouldn't have even been eligible until my junior year. And I really liked the coaching piece, and that was the beginning of the journey. It's now 50 some 50 plus years, or 55 years, I think, or something like that.
You're not that old, are you?
Well, I'm 74. And I didn't go to junior hockey for 3 years because nobody went to junior hockey then.
You know,
uh,
when you played and then started to coach, this is a personal thing for me, but coaching satisfaction for me exceeded playing satisfaction. And I don't know how many coaches feel that way, but I I just found the challenges of it and the engagement in the big picture and details and all the things that you have to be aware of and connected with. I found that exciting. And as a head coach, being responsible uh, was pretty exciting. And over the years, I think I went from running the show, not using assistants, to almost the using my assistants to take advantage of their strength and cover up for my weaknesses, which really was bench management. I rolled lines and I didn't try to shorten them at any time, and
no,
they managed the bench a little tighter than I did and rewarded ice time for the right reasons and probably took it away for the right reasons. I didn't really watch that unless I was head coaching. And I know when I did head coach and sort of dictate things, um, I tended not to be successful. And that was one of the reasons I found when I had assistants run it, run their end, I could watch the game. Like you said, Hal, you can't watch the game and run both sides of the bench.
I agree. The downside that I've learned over the years is, however, assistant coaches that want to be the head coach. And, you have now you have to manage the assistant coaches also, and I've had a couple scenarios where we've had two or three assistants when I was coaching the high school boys team, and and I had told them I'm not going to be doing this forever. Well, that for them forever was like 6 months, and they started doing stuff, but I don't want to say behind my back, but they were doing things that would be more in the purview of the head coach's responsibilities, and then eventually working their way into a scenario where they could become the head coach. And I always saw it happening. And when it happened at the last high school I was coaching at, and it's like I was ready to be done anyways. I mean, if that's the kind of culture they're gonna put up with, then I'm done. um and because there's never a shortage of places to coach. So you know And to your point, Wally, in regards to the satisfaction, I look at my coaching career in sort of 10-year increments. And the first 10 years, I was still better than the players. As a player, I was better, even longer than that, maybe 15 years. But I learned after a while that if you're running drills and if you're as a coach, if you're on the ice and you're sweating and breathing hard, you're not coaching, you're playing. And you can demonstrate some stuff, but running, skating drills means you're not watching what's going on. And I was very lucky to end up actually for the first at least 15 years and even longer with pretty talented kids. So there wasn't as much, we won a lot of games, and because frankly, we just had more talent than most of our opponents. And I seemed to have a knack of getting more out of the kids than previous coaches had done. And then I got to thinking about that, and I'm going, why? Why is this happening? And I really didn't know. I'm not sure I know now either. But I think it comes down to building the right kinds of relationships and creating the right environment for the kids to play their best hockey, whatever that is. And I remember a game a bunch of years ago, but between periods, we're in the locker room and the visiting team's in the other locker room right next to us, and we're winning the game, pretty handily. And their coach went in and threw the garbage cans around and screamed and yelled and intimidated the kids. And and we were sitting right there. We could hear through the heating, the air vents. We could hear everything that was going on. And I told my players, just be quiet and listen to this. And they just sat there, and we went out and scored 5 goals in the next 5 minutes, and their kids were just totally demoralized by their coach. And I've never done that, and I just think that for some reason or another, I get good results on a relative basis. That doesn't mean we win the championships all the time, but we've won 4 or 5 of them, but not. I look at the talent I have in the competitive environment that we're in, and I like to look at the history of what that group has done through their career. What level, how successful were they? And my goal is to do better than that. And almost always that's happened. We've had a couple of years where we've had some players that just kind of crashed and burned the team, or parents that did. But because I found a book, it's the guy from the Positive Coach Alliance, has written the Double Goal Coach. We want to win, but it's how we win. It's how we treat players. And I read that book and I said, this is amazing, because I've already learned everything in there on my own, or almost everything. And here's a guy that put it all in one book that you can read, and it's like how to coach youth athletics. And he was a basketball guy; he wasn't a hockey guy, and it all makes so much sense. He was a professor at Stanford or something, and so for me, it's been an intellectual journey by decade, and this is a whole new decade of players and the environment that we're coaching in, and it's not the old way. I can, for sure. And the technology is changing, and so you can ask more questions, or I'll just keep talking, whatever you want, Wally.
Keep rolling. You're on a roll, buddy.
So
go ahead.
Well, statistics. So all of our rinks have got multiple cameras up